They come for miles to share their art at events like Black Comic Book Festival, Latino Comics Expo, Indigenous Con, and SoulCon, in a new but almost secret world that coincides with social media pages where race and color are embraced, where it's okay to be a black girl nerd with black nerd problems, or an indigenous nerd, or beautiful black women who have opened their own comic book stores.
So why do they come? They certainly don't do it for the money or fame. They're virtually unknown outside the comic book world, but their talents more than rival mainstream comic book companies. Their reunions connect them like family. So does their confidence to dress the part, and the freedom to do and be whatever they choose to be. But what really brings them back and forth across the country? What's their struggles as black and Latino artists? Do black and brown heroes matter? Are the next generation as hungry as I was to see diversity in movies and comic books? Are they wondering, where are the heroes that look like me?
How'd you get started?
How did I get started?
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I got introduced to comics, and then we'll start from there. In the 7th grade, a fella named Jason Lowe, shout out to Jay, a fellow artist, moved to Virginia, where I'm from Detroit.
Okay.
And I had been drawing already. I was big into mythology, especially Greek mythology, Hercules and Medusa. But he had these comic books, and he was already drawing comics, and he was drawing these panels and these characters and all that stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, oh, this is comic books. And I'm like, word? What? Like, what kind of mess is that? Because back then, really the only comic book thing you saw was Superman.
Right.
Christopher Reeve was the biggest thing, and although he was cool,
You wasn't all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
All right.
Especially when Richard Pryor was on the thing.
Oh,
I was like, I'm done.
You gonna do Superman number 3?
You know what I'm saying? So I hated Lex Luthor too, but I'm big on villains.
Yeah.
So I got into New Mutants.
Okay.
And being a young teen, that book made me want to be a part of comics.
Okay.
So what I ended up doing was emulating that, and then I found out about Arthur Adams on Classic X-Men.
Got you.
And my mind was completely obliterated.
Would you say he's one of your biggest influences?
He is the
single influence. Like, that's the one.
Biggest
That's
influence.
the one.
I've got more as far as art is concerned,
right.
But going into what got me into comics, Arthur Adams.
That's it.
That's
all right,
it.
So we're gonna blame you, Art. Thanks. It's your fault.
I met that dude, and it was like one of 3 times in my entire life. I'm standing in line shaking, and I'm talking to the people behind me.
Sure,
and I almost peed on myself.
I'm sure
you know how dogs get excited and pee on your shoe. And I'm shaking Arthur's hand. I know he's looking like, who is this weird, this big mofo? Dude. And I'm shaking his hand like a crazy dude. And I'm like, I knew he's heard it before.
Of course.
You're the one that made me want to try. He's like, I am so sorry. I'm like,
yeah, but did you show him some of your artwork?
No, man.
What?
No, dude, I didn't. I didn't show him anything.
Oh, we're gonna change that.
I'll
make sure.
Yeah.
Make sure.
How I got started in comics. It's what I've always wanted to do since I was 6. I wanted to draw and make comic books. My first job was at Now Comics, writing the Road Ghostbusters. That was probably back in the mid 80s. I've been at it a very long time. I can't do anything else. It's true.
They do see us creating, making stuff of our own. They're shocked because the number one thing that I always get when I'm making art or I'm showing art, especially to black audiences, number one thing that when they see my portfolio, first thing they ask is like, "You drew this?" And then
Are these your characters?
right.
Wow, you made this up. I can't believe it.
Exactly. In the past, our visions of us have always been controlled by the other. It's like every time something comes out, we're once excited and disappointed at the same time. Okay. You know what I mean? We're excited to see something come out there, but at the same time, we're always expecting to be disappointed. We're always expecting for it not to be as authentic as we want it to be.
So why do black and brown comics matter?
They matter because we are reclaiming and showing that we have the ability to imagine, we have the ability to create, we have the ability to create, to control our own narratives, to tell our own
Control our images.
right,
Control our own images.
exactly. And that's what we need to do. Like, we are not dependent on the other to portray us, because the other will never be able to portray us in the way that we can portray ourselves. And furthermore,
We can do we can write their shtick like nobody's business. Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can't do us like we can, because they don't have the education about us that we have about them.
Experience, yeah.
You see what I mean? And on top of that, the African American community is as diverse within our own community as every other community. That's why we need varying stories. That's why it's good that we have Atlanta next to Empire, next to Queen Sugar, next to Power, next to Luke Cage, you know what I mean? Next to The Horseman or Canton Kid or Purge.
Everybody's vision is
Talent, and it adds to the tapestry and the color and diversity and the gumbo that is African American.
I don't like gumbo.
I am?
Okay.
All right.
I'm Bill Campbell. I head Rosarian Publishing. We do these focus on science fiction, fantasy, comics, and a touch of crime fiction, all with multicultural flair. We have about 40 artists and authors from around the world. Whatever you are, you're in Rosarian, basically. And I guess the reason I'm on this panel is because last year we came out with APB, Artists Against Police Brutality, which was a comic book anthology where the proceeds all goes to the Innocence Project. And when we talk about, people always ask me, because there's a year ago and there's like, we could do like 2 more volumes, and we refuse. Because in the 8 months that from College of Exhibitions to print, we have this huge list of all the people that were killed by police. And we had to go to like 6-point font just to cram it into like 4 pages, and it's just way too depressing.
My name is Hector Rodriguez. I'm the creator of Professor Hero from Real World Comics. Based in Texas. I was born in Eagle Pass in the border. And so my book deals with the everyday immigration, social issues, dealing with the Hispanic Latinx community in Texas. And so it's ongoing.
I'm Therese Clark. I'm the CEO of Life Slice Media, which is a social media and digital marketing company. One of our latest works that we've been doing is focusing on comics and graphic novels, mostly Afro-American. And I'm also a freelance writer and journalist, so a lot of my work kind of hits on being black and brown in this space as wife, mother.
My name is Ricardo Padilla, and I'm the executive director and co-founder with my friend Javier Hernandez of the Latino Comics Expo, the nation's premier convention for Latino creators and animators in the country. Thank you. We've been doing that for 5 years, and each year gets bigger and better. Check us out at LatinoComicsExpo.com. And I'm here because a couple years ago I had the great pleasure of meeting John Jennings and Professor Frederick Aldama close to my heart. Like I said, I feel that the story of the 21st century is going to be our communities unifying, kind of like Justice League or like X-Men and Fantastic Four getting together and just changing this whole thing, you know. Like I said, there's been a lot of history, there's been a lot of stuff about dividing our communities, whether artistically or socially, but the SoulCon is going to be like a big step forward in terms of changing that. And I feel it's just a positive thing, so that's why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Vico Alvarez. I am the creator of a webcomic called Scholar Comics. That is loosely, but also very much based on my life, growing up, the child of immigrants in Texas. I'm right now based in Chicago, though. I've been there about 10 years or so. I'm also an educator and activist, so a lot of my work is geared towards creating educational material for young students of color, as well as activist work that centers prison abolition and just in general issues that relate to people of color, but mostly prison abolition and immigrant rights work.
I'm Jay Gonzo, creator of Mama Palestina. It's a comic book about Uchigaluk. I draw wrestling comics. No, I guess, I don't know why I'm here.
Because he's one of the most amazing artists working in the field right now.
My comic does happen to be a lot about identity. You know, the Luchador is a good analog for notions of identity or what, you know, put upon and remove identities of the fluidity of like their own identity.
I honestly, I was thinking about, we were having some good conversations last night at dinner about just kind of what something like SoulCon means, or what something like the Latino comic festival means, and things like that, and even like, I guess more to that point with Black Lives Matter, you know, what these kind of things mean. And I feel that a lot of the consensus amongst amongst Anglos is that it's about us kind of drawing attention to our suffering, you know, like the things that are going wrong for us. And that kind of dawned on me, it's not even about us suffering in silence, it's just us living in silence. Like, and it's about visibility. It's like we're here. And I feel like just in this sort of space, it's like, yeah, we're here and we're doing a thing. We're contributing to, we have our own art form, we have our own culture that's separate in a way. And for me, it's just about, this is a place where I can be like, yeah, here's a thing that I do that is inherently Chicano, and it's not, my comic's about wrestling. It's not like super political, but the fact that it's lucha libre done from a Chicano in a way that is respectful of the sport and the culture it comes from, and I'm not trying to anglify it in a way that makes it palatable. I'm just like, this is the thing that needs to be. It's just a declaration of presence. Like we're here, and I feel like Black Lives Matter isn't necessarily about like needing to stop killing Black people, although we should definitely stop killing Black people. But it's just about like, yeah, Black people are here, and this is the reality of them being here, and yeah, so that's what it means to me. Just visibility, just letting them know that we exist.
I would say like I have to say in these things that if your presence is neither expected nor wanted, then your very presence becomes a political statement. And I think that's sort of, and the one thing about Black Lives Matter is, well, I often talk about how every generation we have to fight erasure, and it's like kind of fucking annoying. And the beautiful thing about technology is not only that it makes things like this more possible, and you see like Indigenous Con and all these other things popping up because social media allows us to know that we're no longer alone. But the thing that I love so much about Black Lives Matter is like it's like real-time reporting. I mean, it was like, and it's like this advocacy that, because, I mean, how long was Black Twitter talking about Trayvon Martin before they finally picked it up? And then when Ferguson popped off, I mean, that was like a weekend of like live tweeting before the media even noticed. And it's like now, I mean, and it's disgusting and it's repulsive, but it's like we can't. We're in a space where, as I said before, American culture doesn't know what to do with itself. It's waking up. It's waking up. Well, I don't even think it's waking up. It's trying to figure out how to go back to sleep. Yeah. I mean, because we have these things pop up every once in a while. You had blaxploitation, you had the Harlem Renaissance, you had like, all those people getting inspired by the Black Panthers and the Young Lords, and I mean we have like Grey Panthers You know, it's like all that stuff. So we have these moments, and this is like one of those moments. But this is a time where we control our own images, even in very small ways. So I think that's one of the things that from what we're doing and how it's related to Black Lives Matter is like this moment where American culture is like, oh shit, how do we, you know, reestablish whiteness? We can't. It's like this genie. We can't put it back in the bottle yet. And while it's out there, like, we're alive, and this whole thing is like very much alive. And every time somebody dies, like, they live on, and you see their deaths instantly. And it's just like you can't act like this didn't happen. You know what I mean? You can't act like Eli Whitney was white. you know, like, we can't do this anymore. So that's where I find how it's related and how they're both very important.
The thing too that's interesting to me too, just like, because I helped, you know, put on a convention, a Latino convention, and through that I was able to meet, you know, like in San Francisco, the PCAP, Black Comics, Arts Fest, John James, and the whole crew. And, you know, the idea for SoulCon came together, the Brown and Black Comics Expo, and just with everything that's going on, I see that it's really like a blessed moment where we can unite, you know. I think sometimes we're always looking for, you know, the major market approval, the Anglo approval. But the fun time, and I think the opportunity right now, is that there's a really historical opportunity, whether it's in the arts, whether it's in society, for the Latino, the Black, Brown to really unite. And that's why the SoulCon, you know, people are getting to know about it, but it's really historical. It's really historical, and it could be very powerful. I mean, sometimes people forget just how much time and effort has been put into divide our communities. Yeah. You know, I feel real blessed because I grew up like right in the border between East LA and South Central LA. So that was like the dividing line between, you know, the Latino gangs and the Black gangs. But so you kind of had to grow up knowing how to negotiate those two things. And but now I think there's just an opportunity where our two, you know, groups can really unite in a really powerful, either politically or artistic, and that's why this SoulCon can be a really effective thing. And just looking at like analytics or metrics, the way they say it, you know, because I say it's, you know, it's hard to compete with like Star Wars, or, you know, it's hard to compete with, you know, these, you know, Anglo stuff or whatever. But I would figure like African American market, 21%, Latino market, another 20%. That's like 40% of the market right there. You know,
100 million people.
100 million, thank you, Bill. You know,
100 million brown people.
You know, because that's what I tell people. When I was growing up, you know, I read Autobiography of Malcolm X. I read, you know, Stokely Carmichael. I knew all those stories, you know, and it's great, you know. And that would be my challenge too to the African American community. You know, what do you guys know about Cesar Chavez? You know, why do you think everybody's immigrating over here? You know, why is that? You know, how many Latino graphic novels? But I think if we like support each other, that could be a very powerful thing, you know, and that's what's exciting to me about SoulCon and the BCAP. It's an opportunity for our two groups, and not that we have to exclude other groups and stuff like that, but I'm just saying that it's a really unique opportunity to unite, you know, and I think that's what's really exciting about what we're doing, about what the professor is doing, you know, inviting us out here, and the whole SoulCon experience. So that's why, even though with all the tragedy and stuff like that, I think it's a really good opportunity to unite.
I was like drawing as far as I can remember since I was like 3 or 4 years old, you know, because my older brothers, I have 4 older brothers, and they could all draw, you know, and but only like actually 2 of us actually went to the profession of the arts, you know. My other brother went to graphics, and I'm more doing, you know, like the comics and entertainment, you know, visual, storyboarding, comics, character designs, and that sort of thing, you know. And now, you know, art education at Columbus Art Design. So that's what I'm, you know, currently working on, or currently doing. I can say, as far as like art influences, like early on, I remember my older brothers having the Frank Frazetta books, art books, you know, and some Conan large treasury edition books, they were called at the time. They were like oversized books But those had a really big impact on me, especially the Frank Frazetta books. What he had in his works, was very powerful to me. How he drew his women, how he drew his male characters. They were strong. They were had like life. Had a lot of energy in them. Whether it was black and white work or whether it was paintings. I say his work had like a really big influence on me. Then as I got older, got more into comics and seeing who was who, and then came along another artist, more in the comics field, of John Byrne, and definitely Michelangelo. As I got a little bit older in teenage years and stuff, learning more about his work. Again, to me, Michelangelo had that same kind of flavor as Frank Frazetta. Had a lot of energy. His work was powerful. I love hands. They drew great hands. I've always wanted to draw great hands. And so looking at those two, Frank Frazetta and Michelangelo, they really had obviously this big impact on what I do. Well, I can say at first, growing up, I didn't really think about it a lot of times. I'm just an artist, just doing what you love to do. But considering, I would say, like the climate of today's political, agenda, climate, whatever you want to call it, I see it today, as really being important as to me being a black artist in this industry. Because I see a lot of folks who have, raised questions about this whole Black Lives Matter, Black Lives or Black Heroes, and it's like they see where, the way I see it is that, like, we're asking for more kind of rights, kind of a thing, or more, we're asking for more. But I just see it as, we're just asking, just for me, I see it as, just more respect as you would anybody else. But obviously, the heroes, the black lives, the black heroes, I see it does matter because, as the industry has gotten, to me, more wide open, as it's not just your major publishers now who have a say as to what comics is, the everyday person, your next door neighbor, has a say as to what kind of stories, they want to tell or they want to see. And other characters of other, ethnicities, brown ethnicities, are really important because, obviously, you have, the white, the Caucasian characters, white characters, they're always there, and obviously they aren't going to go away. But it's just the infusion of black and brown characters in the industry. I think it's good for everybody, and hopefully that the addition of the Black Panther movie will again give people a little bit more like tolerance out there. Because to me it's like a lot of folks have become less tolerant. Not in every area, but some areas I feel that it's really needed.
Expression. So I'm a writer, and one thing that I've seen is the ability for those who don't necessarily have not even mainstream media, but just specific outlets that they can write for. They're taking to individual social media accounts and telling how this movement is personally affecting them. And it's challenging the people around them to think about it in different ways. So what has happened to me often on social media, say Facebook or whatever, I retell the story so much that I don't even post it anymore, and someone actually sent me a message. We had a shooting here and said we had to talk about it, and I'm like, just go through my timeline because it keeps happening. I keep saying the same thing. I don't want to repeat myself again. But I tell the story of how I decorate the back of our minivan. So you might have been here this weekend and saw my family. My husband's here. And
Your husband? Shout out to the husband.
I strategically placed bumper stickers on our car, right? So we got the fish. We're Christian. Okay, cool. We've got the Ohio State alumni
Buckeye Nation
thing on the back of our license plate, right? So that says we're Christian and we're college educated, right? And then we have my kid is on the honor roll here. I don't really care about that. I really don't even want people to know where my kids go to school. But I put that there, so now you know there's children in the car, it's a family. So my daughter goes to a private school in a somewhat exclusive area here in Columbus. And so when my husband is driving through those neighborhoods, that bumper sticker is giving him permission to be in that space. And I feel like, and then, and the stick figure people, which I think are ridiculous, but I have them on the back of there. So, you know, it's the mom, it's the dad, it's the 3 kids, it's the dog. I'm working to humanize this family that's in this car, so you think twice. You find something that you recognize within this family. So I tell this story online all the time, right? And the same people who I see in their posts, all lives matter, blue lives matter, purple, and this, that, and the other, and they don't see race. They stop and they think, oh, because I know her children. I like the Halloween costume images. You know, I bought cookies. You know, so it's, then they feel, okay, well, let me take that moment and think about this a little further. Let me make this micro. And I'm seeing that individuals who are not writers, who just have a story to tell, that they're reaching their friends, their family, their church members, folks have left churches over this, and they're having these conversations. So it's that individual expression that this movement is allowing people to have. And it takes the demonization out of it. Right. Because if you know me, you know my husband, you know our kids, and we're part of this movement, how can it be that awful? How can it be that awful? Well, let me stop and think about it just a little bit, further. Let me listen to the actual conversation before making that snap judgment.
No, it's true. And I think that's the thing that's so important about like comics, the whole graphic novel movement, is because I always, in my spiel too, I always say like, there's really only 3 things that are really American, and that's probably maybe baseball, jazz, and I think this whole comic book art thing, and just to have African Americans, Latinos be part of that, I think it's a really good chance to humanize us as well, so that, because I have to admit, a lot of white people, a lot of Anglos, they buy our stuff, and they love it, and it's a chance for them to see us as human beings, through that art form of comics, and that's why I think, like the BCAF, Soul Comic, Comics Expo, it's also a great way for people to see us, see our art, see our stories. Art Spiegelman, did the same thing with Maus, and try to, humanize that whole Holocaust experience. So that's why this art form, this movement of, SoulCon and everything, it's very important as a chance for other groups outside of us to see us and see our humanity.
Right, it breaks down barriers, like, with us at Europe, I'm dealing with immigration, social issues. I've had border agents come up to me in Texas and conversing with me about their experiences and their connections towards the border experience that, both sides face, regardless of political affiliations. The comic book medium is such a universal vehicle that it just breaks down barriers, and regardless of who's on the cover, sex, gender, if they're able to connect with the story, it transcends that, and it makes them, they can be reflected, they see themselves in the books. And so for me, it's always been very challenging. Ever since I started Lopez at Euro, it's been an advocacy tool. It's hard for me to separate being non-political to telling the story, because I myself, I'm represented, brown, black, the perspective, the experiences through my storylines. So I know you have fans coming to me, when are you going to have fun? When are you going to have fun with the Pussy Hero? I'm like, well, let me just, this is a reflection of our experiences. never really taken a political, a official political stance, but with our with Opposa Hero, we've gotten such positive feedback from the Latino community in Texas, and they've always been good supporters on the storylines and some of the advocacy. I'm an educator too in Dallas, and majority I focus on elementary kids, and a lot of them have, they have never felt represented in mainstream, and so Opposa Hero has always been as a vehicle for them to uplift them and see themselves in literacy. But I know that last summer when Cheetos, like Donald Trump, made those comments against the Hispanic community, we took it upon ourselves to take a stand, and we created an homage cover to Jack Kirby, Captain America punching Adolf Hitler. So we did Opposa Hero punching Donald Trump, and it was picked up by the BuzzFeed of Mexico, Sopitas, and NPR around the world. And that's where the hate mail came in, started rolling in. But that's only was a good thing that we were doing. We were doing something great, and a lot of kids, they've gone in, it encouraged them to speak up, even though as an educator, there's a thing called the Trump effect, and I know that I spoke very briefly last panel, but kids feel that they're being targeted, regardless if they've been second, third generation Americans, they feel next day they're all going to be going to Mexico, and they're like, but I don't speak Spanish, but, and it's very real, and so that was actually a turning point for us, and to be more open and being more expressive on our political perspective, taking a stance in uplifting our community, and giving a voice to the voiceless is very important to us, especially.
This election got me because, and here comes the unpopular part, people are asking me to vote for a person who actively campaigned for the mass incarceration of black people because the other person's a bigot. And I was just like, fuck this. I can't. I'm like, we go from because I always believe that if you're voting for President of the United States, President of the United States has to do dirt because we're an empire and then refuses to admit that we're an empire. But when I have to choose between two people who have absolutely no problem of killing my son or killing me, then it's just like there's nothing else I can do except publish and just keep putting it out there. So that's what really got me, because it was just like both of them. I mean, both of them were going to be willing to do something to us, and people are just going to have to realize that we're going to vote between Popeyes and KFC. Like that. And yes, you are the chicken.
So what got you into comics?
So, I didn't like reading as a kid. And I hated books. Like, literally, books were the devil. Like, you're a reader.
I love to read. Oddly enough.
I hated reading. And it wasn't that I had any deficiencies or anything. It was just the stories were boring. Yeah. There was nothing that was capturing my attention. Now, ironically, Superman is what got me in. I know, right?
Yeah, beatbox on.
You did too. That's dirty. Give me again. It's all. No, it was the death of Superman specifically. Because so while I wasn't a big reader and I wasn't a comic book fan like you, I knew what Superman was. You know what I mean? The pop cultural aspect of him, I got it. So the idea that this guy was gonna die, it was well, how? How does that happen? How do you? That's like killing apple pie. How do you do that? You know what I'm saying? It's that's America. How do you do it? And so I was I want to read that.
About putting peaches in.
You're right, actually. That's deep. And that's basically what they did. They put peaches, aka Doomsday. No, I said I wanted to read it, and my mom, who was a big advocate for me reading, she wanted me to read so much that she didn't care what it was that I read. So the idea that I said anything that I wanted to read, she was like, oh, I want it. I'm getting that. Anything. Literally the next day, she comes home with a stack of books this big, comic books. Boom, slaps them down. Read them. I was hyped until I realized none of them were the death of Superman. Like, I was so upset. I didn't understand that just because they announced it in the news, it would take like months for that extra to come out.
Yeah.
But I was like, none of these are Death is Secret. What is this? Like, I'm gonna read these though. I'm gonna read them, and I did. I fell in love with the medium. Man, Jim Lee, a acolyte of Art Adams. I'll say acolyte.
Gotten to that question.
I know we haven't. Well, I'm just saying, like, he was one of the first names that I paid attention to artistically to even go beyond the idea of just comic books and characters, but to see who did anything with it. That was kind of my intro. But yeah, it was a lack of reading anything else, and then comic books having something about them that it was like the combination of words and pictures and story and the big nature of the characters. I fell in love, and I was like, this is my life from now on. This is what I want. That's my simple answer. It gets deeper. It gets deeper. You know it gets deeper. It gets crazy. But no, that was definitely. Your pool's so shallow. I mean, no, because like, all right. So to give like the very quick thing, because I got into comic books, I found out that my uncles could draw, and I would draw with them. And the youngest of the bunch, he was like so very supportive of me getting into it. And when I was like 11, he was killed. Like we had worked on a project, and he was taking some books back to the library and got attacked by some teenagers and was killed. It was kind of in honor of him that I dedicated like way back then. I was gonna do something in comic books. Like I didn't care what it was. I'm gonna do something in honor of him. So that's my Batman, Peter Parker origin story to it. Like I got into the
stick with Peter.
Stick with Peter?
Yeah.
Let me
you know how I feel about that.
You don't like
We won't get into it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's my Peter Parker version of it, because my beloved uncle. There we go. But yeah, so that's the full thing for me. I know your uncle was a big push for you in comics too.
My Uncle Doug is probably the single biggest motivator for me, and my biggest supporter, or has been. Now everybody's very supportive because I'm doing something, but when I first started, because my uncle was big into Fantastic Four, and Dr. Doom was his dude.
Another dude named Victor, you know what I'm saying?
So Uncle Doug was always he would draw on stuff, and I would marvel at what he was doing, and whenever I said I wanted to draw something, he's like, do it. Awesome. And so when I did my first art book, right, I redesigned some of his old characters.
I remember that.
And put those in there, and I hope it made him happy. I think it did. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
One of these days, I'm hoping to maybe even add some of his characters into one of my books.
Let's make that happen.
A la Rough House.
Let's make that happen.
But just the whole comics part, I guess that's kind of like my fantasy, my dream is I wish all the Latinos would read like African American comics, and I wish African Americans would read Latino comics. Because I have to admit, that's one of my pet peeves, and that's why I push unity, because I used to go to a shoe shine place, and it was all like older African American gentlemen, and they were anti-Latino. I would go in there, and that would be like the excuse to be talking about, these Mexicans are coming over here, taking all our jobs, and it was before that every custodian job was of African American. Now you guys taking our jobs and coming over, and there's like, some Trump support, for building a wall, and I'm like, are you guys serious? It's like, so I just want to throw it out too. It's like, you think it's a generational class thing? Because I know there's a lot of African Americans that kind of hate on the Latino immigrant thing because they think that we're bringing down wage.
As a comment. Well, it's kind of like for me. I always look at like the part of our nation's culture is it's like so competitive because of capitalism, right? So like we separate things like, they can take this from us, so I have to stop that competition, and stop that. Instead of looking at it like it's not a competition, we don't even have to follow that game. We can like live a whole different kind of life.
But this has been like American history in its onset from like when you had the Irish and Italians coming over, who were also battling like other black and brown folks for like low grade positions.
Go back to 1830, you will see publication and then articles about why can't these Irish and Germans act more like black people? Like we are literally the first minority. So this is a game that's always been.
Yeah.
Well, I started when I was probably 5 or 6. When I first read X-Men, and I was just drawing the characters. So ever since then, I was a huge fan of comic book characters and comic books. And ever since that point, I've just been drawing comic characters. Any chance I can get. So.
Who were your influences as an artist?
Well, first and foremost, my uncle Dave Lynch, big influence on me. He pretty much taught me everything I know, like the fundamentals, anatomy, shading, rendering the basics. Professionally, I mean, the guys who, like the more famous guys, Jim Lee was a big influence on me early on. Later on, Joe Madureira was a big influence. Travis Charest, Adam Hughes has been a big one more recently. And beyond that, like Japanese artists like Bangus and other Capcom artists who do gaming and things like that. So pretty wide range, I think.
Why do black and brown comics matter?
Well, they matter because honestly, there are a lot of black and brown artists who just aren't part of the mainstream of comics. I don't know if they've been ignored or if they just haven't been allowed to enter into the mainstream. But I mean, their voices are important. It's a very important aspect of American culture, American society, black and brown culture, and it's very much needed in the comic sphere. I can remember growing up, and there was comics that had all white characters. I mean, all white teams, all white cast. And you would sit back and say, hey, where am I being represented at? Or, where's someone that looks like me? And I think that's very important for people to read this medium and see a reflection of themselves. I mean, granted, you don't have to have a black and brown character to get that reflection, but I mean, it definitely helps having a diverse cast in the comic book. And, and it's also important that the medium reflects American society. So that's why I think those voices are important.
As a result of the recent elections, do you feel this is a major setback for minorities as a whole?
The election? Well, we'll have to wait and see. I'll tell you, election night, I definitely felt like it was, for minorities and for women. I mean, I think that the result was definitely a reflection of sexism in society. I mean, you had someone who was extremely qualified, versus someone who was totally not qualified, and the person who wasn't qualified got in, the person who was extremely qualified didn't. And, I definitely think sexism played a role in the result of the election. So I think it's a setback for women, especially, but also, for minorities, because some of the rhetoric and some of the results that we've seen afterwards. So, but I mean, we'll see what extent it will be. I don't know at this point how far it can go, but I mean, it's not looking good. So,
when you look to the future, what do you hope to see, as in the world of comics?
More diversity. More diverse voices. When I look at, who's popular now creator-wise, especially with the big two, it's mostly white faces. I hate to say that, but I mean, it's just the reality. I would like to see definitely more minorities being a part of that mainstream aspect. It's really strange to see just the lack of black and brown creators in comics. It really is. I mean, it's 2016, and you still see a huge lack of black and brown creators working for the big two, DC and Marvel Comics. So hopefully that changes in the future.
From a marketing perspective, so my job is to get comics into the hands of people and get people to understand that, hey, this comic's here, come over here, right? So one of the things that we learned when we first jumped into it is that if I show up online as my, little face that pops up and discuss certain things within, the groups and the areas that comic book fans and creators all congregate, crickets. No likes, no talks, no anything. David will then, as my partner, go right on in and say the same thing, likes, comments, everything, right? So still that space is, you're still kind of somewhat invisible, right? So you say it, A plus B equals C, no one talks to you. Another man comes right behind you, says the same thing, and they, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But what I am seeing is that then women are creating their own spaces and media. So like Black Girl Nerds, huge platform. And it came off because she was looking for other women like her who were into geek culture and, pop and everything, and didn't find it. So she created it. Karama Ford is also the Blurred Girl. Her blog is fantastic. And so what we're seeing now is that, again, like we all do as far as minorities, cultural minorities, when you're not represented, you go do it yourself. So these women are going out and making these really great spaces, and then, of course, they're highlighting the artists like Ashley Woods and Liz.
Exactly. The similar theme of like you build it yourself, that's what I see. Is you create these spaces for yourself, because even in independent artist movements, when they first begin, they do tend to be pretty male dominated. And you either have to be comfortable enough having that conversation about how male dominated it is, and really be intentional about not making it male dominated in ways that are probably going to silence some men who run it and be cool with it, or we're just going to do our own thing. What I've seen, I guess, in the Latino art community, illustration, comic, etc., is that a lot of my friends, I feel like I don't even exclusively hang out in queer communities, but they do things themselves, and every time it's challenged. Many of the people who spearhead these spaces are also queer women of color, and I think that's part of the reason why they get challenged, because they're not only queer, they're also women. And we're not even yet being inclusive of people who identify as trans.
Influences wise, artistically.
Yeah, mine would be all artistic. My biggest thing is I don't like to read a book unless I can.
That's true.
Unless I can deal with the artwork.
Right. No, not deal with. Don't be polite.
If I draw better than him, I won't.
You ain't reading the book.
That's the point blank part. But as we said earlier, first is Arthur Adams. I mean, that's the guy.
Right.
If there is a guy. My second right now, Jim Lee in the 90s
great.
was huge for me. And I met a guy, Karan Grant, in college. I met him up at the Ogre.
Okay.
Gibb introduced me to it.
Really?
Guy.
Okay.
And because I would always ask, I was like, who's this Karan dude? He goes to my school, but I don't know him. He said, yeah, Karan's back there. So I went and talked to him. And could have found out he's into motorcycles as well, but he's his style and his willingness to explore different artistic avenues, just like I am, was another one.
Yeah, because Karan, his background was industrial
design. Yeah, he was making stuff.
Right.
And Oliver Copier.
It's hard
the
to say
French
his
guy.
name. He's a French black dude.
He's a French black guy.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yes.
Amazing illustrator. And recently, and I hate to say it, but I never got into Daryl Banks until I met him.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I was kind of upset once I moved here, and he was no longer the comic book teacher.
Yeah, that's true.
And when I first found out about him, I started looking into him. I'm like, okay, who's this guy? Dude is ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, he is ridiculous. And I have grown so much respect for Daryl Banks' work, his body of work, and him as a person.
Yeah.
And he has quickly moved to the top of my list. So those are my top handful.
Those are
those are my guys.
Those are tip top. I can't be mad at that. Like Daryl, I met Daryl when I was in high school, which probably is both good and bad. Like he was the first professional creator I'd ever met, and he is black. So that was a very interesting point for me when I was coming off of not being an uber fan of the Milestone universe at all. I wasn't, man. I hated it. And Daryl seemed to articulate a lot of the things that I thought were great. Like, he was a great artist, but he didn't allow him being black to define what he worked on. He could do anything, literally draw for anybody. Like, I think when I first saw him, he was working on Green Lantern, but he had done some Superboy stuff. I think some Supergirl popped up in there. Like, he had worked on a lot of different characters. But of course, it was his run on Green Lantern that definitely cemented who he was. But it was wild. I met him, I was like 16, and he was brought in, like, his artwork was on display at the school gallery because this was messed up about it. He was featured as an alumni, but he wasn't actually an alumni of the school. He was an alumni of the teacher that taught at the time. So she brought him in anyway, which was fine for me. I didn't care. I loved it. But I remember, like, seriously sitting there on lunch, like, going to the gallery and eating food, just looking at his pencils and just staring at them. Knowing I couldn't touch nary nothing of it. Like, because he is so technically strong, it's ridiculous. Like, you almost can't even see, like, how he builds foundation. He just goes.
You know how long I look at that piece?
Dude, oh my God. I'm still, you know what, I'm mad because you have a piece from him and I don't. Like, I need to get a piece.
Thank you, Daryl.
Oh,
thank you, Daryl. You listen, you put your foot in it. You understand me? Listen.
I have two children that are half Australian and half Chicano. My first wife was a women's studies major, so she wasn't going to change her last name. So my kids have a hyphenated last name, so they're Luis Gonzalez, and I've had discussions with them about, at some point, it just might be easier for you to be Quinn Lewis and not Quinn Lewis Gonzalez, especially in Australia or in Arizona. And they seem pretty committed to holding on to it, which I'm happy about. For me to, like, just become something I'm not is weird. Like, I do have a pseudonym, but that's just because there's too many Gonzalez.
How much of me? Well, this character in particular is all me. It was actually created by Victor. He called me one day and was like, I need you to design this character based on yourself. I said, okay, well, it'll just be me. T-shirt, kilt sometimes, Chuck Taylors, long socks. I wear long socks right now. Like, that's the only socks I wear. And a mohawk. It's me. Outside of that, I want to promote strength in my characters. I want to promote whether it be a male or female character, whether it be a black or white character. I want to promote emotion, and I want to promote the ability of the character to be able to think. So I try to put a bit of myself in all of the characters that I draw, even if I'm doing it for someone else. With the Samaritan, I tried to put a bit of myself in that character, especially with some of the story aspects. The first story arc was all me. The first book was all me. It was dealing with child abuse, and that story resonated with me so heavily because at the time my son was just being, well, he was 2, I think, and to Victor's credit, I resonated with that story so heartily. My heart beat so fast when I was drawing those panels, especially at the end when I was able to show what would happen to someone who had violated a child in that way. So it was tough. I think it's hard for me not to be able to put myself in the characters that I create.
Recognizing that I come from before I was a comic artist, I was hardcore organizer in activist land. I was the one with the signs, organizing people to get more signs. That was my position for a very long time. In different movements, immigration, mostly labor though. I worked with unions in the past, so pretty familiar with the movement work, probably more familiar than I am with the comic land. But that being noted, I think that there's things that we need to recognize that might be unpopular, but we really do have to check them. So one thing, going back to the question of experiences, where there was some tension or whatever, there was a few articles that started coming out not too long ago, basically saying, there's all this attention being given to Black folks who are being murdered, but what about the Latinos? That was basically the headline. And I was just like, hell, are we really trying to compete over this? So that was something, and it's still happening. I think it happened, there's been a lot of people checking their community on that, but it's still happening, this idea that there's this competition between the two communities, and it's not even two communities, because if you see it that way, you're erasing Afro-Latinos. But there is still that competition, and honestly, I think a lot of it comes down to us as non-Black Latinos really checking other non-Black Latinos and bringing them into this consciousness on what it really means to be Black in the U.S. and what it means to be a non-Black Latino in the U.S. In our own families, we'll see it. There's colors in our own families. I'm hella pale, I'm hella light skinned. So nobody's trying to pull me over as much as they might be trying to pull over my brother, who's significantly darker than I am. He's been pulled over multiple times. And then there's a larger spectrum of that discrimination, right? He might not be getting pulled over as much as somebody of even darker skin, somebody who's Black. So there's, as much as we definitely need to push forward with uniting over common issues, I think it's also, you can't get to that unity until you recognize the differences in the way that we are discriminated against. Once we recognize them, then we really can't open our eyes to what's going on in one another's communities, begin to understand them, and begin to come together. So there's unity and difference, I suppose.
I call that the oppression Olympics. Yeah, it's no, we've been oppressed more than you. No, we've been there. How about this?
Kind of fell out of love with actually drawing comic books, even though that's what got me into it and kept me for 15 years. Once I got to college, I wanted to write instead of actually draw stories. And from that point, my list of influences are tighter now. Mark Miller is definitely at the top of the list for me. with not only with the stories that he tells, but actually his success of what he's been able to accomplish as a writer. I think he's stupid phenomenal. Like the idea of being able to write a story and before the book comes out, it's optioned as a movie.
Yeah,
I want to get there. You know what I'm saying? Like I just kind of that's a goal. I got to give mad love to Robert Kirkman as well. That's a dude that his success is a little longer. You know, The Walking Dead is definitely one of the largest properties out right now, but it took a long time for it to get there, and I appreciate his diligence to do so. Writing side though, Dwayne McDuffie, like
very much.
Yeah, it's hard to push beyond him. Kyle Baker is another one and Kyle can also draw. Like his art is great, but his storytelling is a big one as well. He's definitely somebody that I chalk up as an influence to the things that he does. And it's kind of awkward where a lot of the guys that I look up to are not African American, writers. Dwayne is really like one of the few that I hold in that high regard. There's plenty that I know, but to make them kind of in the same vein that you're talking about, where you have to write better than I do, and it's not about how many awards you got.
Right.
It's about
your storytelling.
Right. If it's not capturing me, then I can't put you in that high regard.
I had the pleasure of meeting Dwayne.
Did you really?
I
hate you so much right now.
My first Columbus show, he actually did a critique on one of my stories from college.
That's messed up. Let's go back in time. Let's build a time.
I wish.
In the light of all the things that are going on in the world, how is it that when you're trying to push through the mainstream of comics, how do you get established? How do you get the recognition? And why is it that sometimes you have to cater to the mainstream to get your work done because of the lack of attention from other minorities, or maybe they're unaware of what you're doing and others like you are doing?
As an artist, it's a tight rope between grabbing someone's attention because your art is good, or if you have characters that people identify with. And I have this argument with a few people before. It's not that I want to do what's quote unquote fan art. It's just that in order for someone that doesn't know me to come to my table and look at my work, there has to be a reason. And this reason is twofold. One is the artwork is good, and or there's a character or characters or something that speaks to them. And most of the time, especially nowadays with comics being so mainstream, when they can relate to something, they come over and then they give you a chance. They can look at, okay, well, this guy's actually really good, or this guy sucks, and what initially brings them over is usually, okay, well, oh my God, that character, and I think now the best thing about it is consumers, art lovers, and comic book fans are becoming smarter about how they look at art. They're not looking at the character. They're looking at the work put in. They're looking at the quality of the artwork. They're looking at the artists themselves, and they're looking at whether the person that's there actually did the artwork.
Yeah, that's a big.
And that's a big deal right now. That's a big deal right now. So for me, that's what keeps me going. And being able to engage with the fans, with the people that come and to see my artwork. And all that.
For me, it's a little different because both as a writer and a self-publisher, I'm dealing with a lot of properties that people don't automatically recognize. So it's part of the thing about the mainstream in that regard is that it's almost a negative. Because I'm fighting against the mainstream. I'm not Marvel, I'm not DC, I don't have Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, or the X-Men. So those are characters that are already being promoted. so it becomes a little bit harder to get recognized on that stage. However, for me personally, I feel like if you try to step aside from the mainstream because it's hard, then you're not doing yourself the service or your work the service, because you're basically placating to the idea that yes, this is hard, therefore I shouldn't try. I go with the mainstream because that's what I want my work to be a part of. I want it to be a part of the conversation. I might not ever be Marvel or DC, but when it comes to best books ever produced, I want my stuff to be in that conversation.
My parents, even with me wanting to be an artist, and it's odd because black families, 9 times out of 10, especially back then, did not want their children to draw for a living. Drawing for a living is not in that book.
It's not a guarantee.
Where when the teacher asked you and Officer Friendly came into the room.
Right.
Did you guys have?
We had Officer Friendly. We did.
He came into the room like everybody wants to be a police officer and everybody wants to be a fireman and yeah.
I'm a doctor.
I want to be an artist.
Crickets.
Like, what?
Crickets.
But
obviously, my family, we have very strong arts backgrounds. Whether it's theater, music, things like that. So I had a lot of push. I think the only push back, as I can call it, would be from my father, who, when I decided to do this full time, and that's the difference. Doing comic books was not a problem for him. He never had an issue against it. It was me stepping out into the unknown when I had children and saying, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna pursue this full time, because it was something that he couldn't quantify, especially in conjunction or comparison to the fact that I was working for the state of Ohio, which is that's a guaranteed check every 2 weeks and it's pretty good money, So he's like, you got kids, man, you can't do that. What's wrong with you? And I was like, look, Pop, I gotta do it.
Crazy?
Right? He's like, what? But what the thing was in a way he was agnostic about it. He didn't say I couldn't do it. He spoke to his concerns, right? And I get that. As a father myself, I get that. I totally understand that his concern was that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself and my children, and that's the last thing that he would want. Because not the example that he set forth was you take care of your family. And in the success that I've had since, he's definitely been one of my loudest supporters because he's seen me do it. It was one of those things where he was very concerned, very nervous, but then, he saw it and was like, hey, I can't say he's not doing it, and he didn't know what he was doing. He was just still being my dad, despite the fact that I was 28 years old. It's that old truism,
You're never
too old.
You're never too old to be the baby.
Exactly. So, I think that's probably the hardest pushback, and even that wasn't a pushback. It was a line that was like, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And you
or let it go.
Right. Do black and brown heroes matter?
To coin a phrase, every hero matters. However,
yes.
For me, the fact that for the most part we're underrepresented, and for my son, and for your children, and for all of our friends' children, whether black or white, there's a such thing as diversity. Right? It's a real word. It has real meaning. I think it's important for children to have a representation of themselves, something that they look like.
I've learned so much during this look into the lives of Black and Latino artists, and I find myself envious. They're not afraid to live their lives. So maybe it's time for me to follow in their footsteps. Maybe it's time for me to show what I can do. Introducing Ariel, the Lioness of God. Stop. It's there's
the juice. Come on, man. You good.
There
Don't
are
worry about it.
filters.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
iMovie has filters. I'm sure I can figure out how to
We got you. Don't worry about it.
enhance the video.
Flower thing on there. I'm gonna have all the Instagram.
You're gonna have a dog nose.
Yeah.
Every time you open your mouth.
Licking.
Yeah. Okay.
And the one where the fire come out your eyes. I've seen that on the internet.
Reflective.
See, from this angle, you're
Great.
sucking up all the light. From this angle, I'm basically further closer to the thing.
Right.
So you're not able to jump my light.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, we're both light skinned, so we was projecting at you.
Sucking up all the light.